The scene opens with an almost suffocating stillness, the kind of quiet that hums with unspoken dread. Ethan Cole, a man who spends his days wrapped in the fictional crimes he writes, now stands frozen in the doorway of his neighbor's apartment, struck by the wrongness of it all. The air is thick with the scent of stale coffee and dust, as if time itself has paused inside these walls. Lena Voss is gone, but her absence is louder than her presence ever was. Her apartment is a museum of interrupted life. A book lies open on the armchair, its spine cracked at the halfway point. A story she will never finish. A coffee cup sits on the table, the liquid inside long since evaporated, leaving behind a dark ring like a stain of guilt. The record player, an antique piece she once told Ethan was her most prized possession, skips softly at the end of a track, the needle caught in a loop of silence between notes. Ethan steps inside, his breath shallow, as if afraid to disturb the fragile emptiness. His fingers brush the spine of the Book of Disquiet by Pessoa, a fitting choice for a woman who seemed to dissolve into her own thoughts. He flips through the pages and finds a single underlined passage. I wasn't meant for reality, but life came and found me anyway. The police will call this a voluntary disappearance. They will say people like Lena, solitary, introspective, untethered, drift away all the time. But Ethan knows better, or at least he thinks he does, because the unsettling truth is not in what's missing, but in what remains. No signs of struggle, no hastily packed bags, no note. Just the lingering sense that Lena didn't leave. She was erased, quietly and completely. The apartment doesn't feel abandoned, it feels waiting, as if she might step out of the bathroom at any moment, drying her hands on a towel, asking Ethan why he's standing there like a ghost in her home. And then there's the record. It's the same one she played the night they first spoke properly, months ago. A haunting jazz piece that she said reminded her of how endings should sound, beautiful but unfinished. Now the needle is stuck, replaying the same 3 seconds of melody over and over, a broken refrain. Ethan lifts it, and the sudden silence is deafening. That's when he sees it. Tucked beneath the record sleeve, barely visible, is a single Polaroid. A photograph of a door, not Lena's, not Ethan's, but one he doesn't recognize. On the back, in her precise handwriting, 2 words, "Find me." And just like that, the emptiness shifts. It's no longer passive. It's an invitation, a challenge, a warning. The scene fades as Ethan pockets the photo, his reflection flickering in the darkened window. For a moment, it isn't his face staring back, but Lena's, her lips parted as if to speak. Then, nothing. Only the echo of a silence that has learned how to scream. The precinct hums with the dull, bureaucratic energy of a place where tragedies are processed rather than solved. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting a sickly glow on the scuffed linoleum floor as Ethan Cole sits across from Sergeant Holloway, a man whose face has long since settled into the weary resignation of someone who has stopped believing in mysteries. The desk between them is cluttered, coffee stains on paperwork, a half-eaten donut forgotten on a case file. Holloway flips through Ethan's statement with the disinterest of a man reading a grocery list. His pen taps against the form, impatient, already moving toward dismissal before the story is fully told. "So let me get this straight," Holloway says, not looking up. "Your neighbor, Lena Voss, mid-30s, keeps to herself, hasn't been seen for a few days, no signs of forced entry, no history of mental illness, no known enemies, and you're, what, her emergency contact?" Ethan shifts in the hard plastic chair. But something's wrong. Her apartment's untouched. Her things are still there. She wouldn't just leave. Holloway sighs, the sound of a man who has had this conversation 100 times before. He slides a missing person's form across the desk, the gesture perfunctory. People walk away, Mr. Cole, especially the quiet ones. Sometimes they don't want to be found. There's a pause. The clock on the wall ticks loudly, each second a hammer fall. Ethan leans forward, his voice dropping. What if she didn't walk away? For the first time, Holloway looks at him, really looks at him. His eyes are flat, like tarnished coins. You got evidence of foul play? A threat? A struggle? No, but... Then what do you want me to do? Holloway interrupts, spreading his hands. File the report. If she turns up dead, we'll know. If she doesn't, well, the world's full of ghosts. The words hang in the air, colder than they should be. Ethan stares at the form, the blank lines waiting to be filled with details that already feel insufficient. Lena's life reduced to check boxes, height, weight, distinguishing marks. Holloway takes a sip of coffee, the mug leaving a damp ring on the paperwork. Look, I get it. You're a crime writer. You see stories where there aren't any. But real life's not like your books. Most disappearances, they're boring. Sad, maybe, but boring. Ethan opens his mouth to argue, but the sergeant is already standing, signaling the end of the conversation. We'll keep an eye out. That's all I can promise. As Ethan steps back into the muted chaos of the precinct, the ringing phones, the murmured conversations, the smell of stale sweat and ink, he realizes the true horror of the moment. It isn't that the police suspect foul play. It's that they don't care enough to suspect anything at all. Lena Voss is already fading, not just from the world, but from the record of it. And the most terrifying thing? The system works exactly as it's designed to. The memory unfolds like an old film reel, the edges of the frame slightly blurred, as if time itself has softened the details but left the feeling intact. Ethan stands in the dimly lit hallway of their apartment building, fumbling with his keys, when the elevator doors slide open with a tired sigh. And there she is. Lena Voss steps out, her arms cradling a stack of weathered library books, their spines cracked with age. The overhead light flickers, casting her face in alternating waves of shadow and pallid yellow. She moves quietly, but not furtively. There's a deliberate grace to her steps, as if she's practiced the art of occupying space without disturbing it. Ethan, ever the observer, notes the titles in her arms. The Book of Disquiet, House of Leaves, a collection of Sappho's poetry with dog-eared pages, books about absence, about spaces between words. He clears his throat, grasping for something to say beyond the usual neighborly pleasantries. You're, a reader, he offers, the lameness of the statement hanging between them. Lena's lips quirk, not quite a smile. I like stories where the silence speaks louder than the dialogue, she replies, her voice low but precise, each word carefully placed. The hum of the hallway's faulty fluorescent light fills the silence. Then, just as Ethan begins to retreat into his apartment, Lena tilts her head, studying him with an intensity that feels almost invasive. Do you ever think about how easy it would be? She asks. The words land like a stone in still water. Before Ethan can respond, before he can even process whether she's joking or deadly serious, Lena adjusts her grip on the books. Never mind, she murmurs. It's just something I've been researching for a project. And with that, she's gone, slipping into her apartment with a quiet click of the lock. Ethan stands there, key still in hand, staring at the peeling paint of her door. Later, he'll tell himself he imagined the odd weight of that conversation. Later still, he'll realize that was the moment the hook was set. The first tug of a mystery that would unravel them both. The air in Lena's apartment has grown thicker since Ethan's last intrusion, as if the walls themselves are exhaling the scent of her absence, a mingling of lavender ink and the faint metallic tang of a knife left too long on a cutting board. Moonlight slices through the half-drawn blinds, painting prison bar shadows across the floorboards as Ethan kneels beside her bed, his fingers spider-walking beneath the mattress where dust bunnies cling like secrets too long kept. The journal resists at first, lodged between the box spring and a forgotten paperback of Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus. When it finally slides free, the leather cover leaves a sweaty imprint on Ethan's palm, as though the book itself is alive and breathing. He opens it with the reverence of a man unsealing a tomb, the spine cracking in protest. Inside, the pages are a battlefield of ink and madness, not the frenzied scrawling of a disturbed mind, but something far more unsettling, the meticulous documentation of a soul methodically unraveling. On the left page, architectural sketches of doors that cannot exist, their frames bending at impossible angles, their knobs placed just slightly too high for human hands. On the right, lists in Lena's precise handwriting. Ethan's pulse thrums in his throat as he turns another page to find a newspaper clipping about a local woman's disappearance from 1992, the edges worn soft from handling. Beneath it, Lena has written, "She found the third door. I can hear her singing sometimes in the pipes." The ink is smudged here, as if watermarked by tears or the condensation from a whispered confession. Near the back, the entries grow more frantic. A single sentence repeats like a mantra. They're coming to take the quiet ones first. The final page holds only a charcoal rubbing of what appears to be a door frame, the grain of the wood preserved in stark relief. In the bottom corner, almost as an afterthought, "Ethan will understand when it's time." The radiator hisses suddenly, making Ethan startle so violently he nearly drops the journal. For the briefest moment, the shadows in the corner of the room seem to congeal into something approximating human form, a tall figure with Lena's distinctive slope of shoulders, but when he blinks, there's only the swaying of the curtain in a non-existent breeze. He realizes three things simultaneously. First, that his hands are shaking hard enough to make the pages tremble like aspen leaves. Second, that the temperature in the room has dropped enough to see his panicked breath fogging in the moonlight. And third, most damning of all, that some part of him recognizes these sketches of impossible doors from his own forgotten dreams. The journal weighs far more than its physical mass as Ethan slips it into his coat pocket. He knows, with the certainty of a man feeling the first loose thread in his own sanity, that this isn't just Lena's story anymore. It's a map, a warning, and perhaps most terrifying of all, an invitation. As he crosses back to his apartment, the floorboard that usually creaks beneath his weight remains conspicuously silent. The old woman's apartment smells of mothballs and overcooked tea, the kind of place where time has settled into the upholstery. Mrs. Rosenthal's hands tremble as she pours Earl Grey into a chipped porcelain cup, her cataract-filmed eyes drifting toward the window that faces the building's courtyard. "You're asking about the girl? The quiet one?" Her voice rasps like dry leaves. "She had a visitor last Tuesday. Or was it Wednesday? The days blur when you're my age." Ethan leans forward, the notepad in his hands suddenly heavy. What did he look like? Mrs. Rosenthal's gaze sharpens for a moment, as if she's peering through a fog. Tall, dark coat, the kind of face you forget as soon as you look away. She taps her temple. "But I remember the way he moved, like he wasn't used to his own body, like he was learning how to be human. The description coils in Ethan's gut. He sketches as she talks, the pencil moving almost on its own. Broad shoulders, a coat too heavy for the season. The suggestion of a beard, though Mrs. Rosenthal can't recall if it was real or just a trick of the hallway's poor lighting. Did they argue? Not loud, just tense. The old woman sips her tea, her knuckles mottled with age spots. He kept looking at his hands like he was surprised by them, and then she pauses. Then he turned his head, just so, and the light caught his profile. Ethan's pencil freezes, because the sketch staring back at him isn't a stranger. It's him. The realization doesn't come as a shock. It comes as a slow, sickening unspooling, like a film reel catching fire mid-frame. The coat is his. The posture is his. Even the way the figure's fingers curl inward, as if resisting some unseen pull, is unmistakably his own nervous habit. You're sure? His voice sounds distant, underwater. Mrs. Rosenthal studies him for a long moment. Then, softly, oh dear. The teacup clatters as she sets it down. Outside, a storm gathers, the first fat raindrops smearing the window like tears. You don't remember, do you? The question isn't cruel, just resigned, and that's when Ethan notices it. The faint mud stain on his own boot, the one he can't account for. The lingering scent of damp earth on his coat sleeves, the way his right palm stings when he flexes it, as if recently scraped raw. The stranger isn't missing. He's been here all along. The walls of Ethan's apartment no longer feel like barriers. They've become membranes, thin and porous, breathing in time with something he cannot see. It starts in small, almost rational ways. Misplaced keys that later reappear in the freezer, the scent of Lena's jasmine perfume clinging to his sheets, despite her never having entered his bedroom. He tells himself these are tricks of fatigue, the natural slippage of a writer too deep in his own fictions. But then, the whispers begin. Not voices, not quite. More like the static between radio stations, the murmur of half-formed words pressing against his eardrums in the dead hours of the night. He wakes with sentences scrawled across his arms in blue ink, his own handwriting, but words he doesn't recall writing. The door isn't locked, it's waiting, and she's where the light doesn't bend. The mirror becomes his enemy. Some mornings, his reflection blinks a half-second out of sync. Other times, he catches glimpses of movement behind him, a shadow with Lena's posture, turning a corner just as he spins to look. When he presses his palms to the glass, the surface ripples like water, and for one heart-stopping moment, he swears something presses back. His manuscript pages begin to change. He'll leave a chapter about a detective on his desk, only to return and find new paragraphs in his own hand, describing places he's never been. An underground train station with no exits, a library where the books are all blank but still somehow scream. The prose is his, but the memories aren't. The breaking point comes when he discovers the recordings. His laptop's voice memo app contains hours of audio he never made. His own voice, but wrong, flatter, recounting conversations with Lena that never happened. The third method requires moonlight and a mirror. His doppelganger whispers in the playback. You'll know when it's time to open the way. The most terrifying part? He listens to these tapes in broad daylight, sunlight streaming through the windows, and still feels Lena's fingernails tracing the nape of his neck as the voice says, "She's almost here, Ethan, and she's bringing all the quiet places with her." When he finally screams, the sound vanishes the instant it leaves his throat, swallowed whole by the hungry silence of the apartment. The air itself feels thick now, resistant, as if he's moving through gel. His hands pass through objects occasionally, the world glitching like a corrupted file. The last coherent thought he grasps before the unraveling completes itself is this. What if he's not losing his mind? What if he's finally waking up? And from the hallway, so soft it might be imagination, might be memory, might be truth, the unmistakable sound of Lena's key turning in his lock. The envelope is unremarkable, cream-colored, slightly yellowed at the edges, the kind you might find in any stationery shop. But the way it sits in Lena's desk drawer makes Ethan's breath catch. It isn't tucked away or hidden beneath other papers. It's placed deliberately at the center, as if it's been waiting for him. His name is written on the front in Lena's handwriting, the ink slightly smudged, like she hesitated at the last moment before letting the pen touch paper. Ethan's fingers tremble as he lifts it. The paper is heavier than it should be, almost warm to the touch, as though it contains something alive. He turns it over, half expecting to find a wax seal, some final flourish of mystery, but there's only the faintest trace of lipstick on the flap, a deep red, like a wound. When he opens it, the sound is louder than it should be, a dry, papery gasp, as if the envelope has been holding its breath. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded crisply down the middle. No greeting, no signature, just one sentence, written in that same careful script. You already know where I went. You just don't remember helping me. The words don't immediately sink in. At first, they seem absurd, impossible. But then, like ink spreading through water, the implication bleeds into his consciousness. His throat tightens. The room tilts. Because the truth isn't in the words themselves, it's in the familiarity of them, the curve of the Y in you, the way the M in remember dips slightly, as if Lena's hand had faltered. He's seen this handwriting before, not just in her journal, on his own arms, in the margins of his manuscript. The letter slips from his fingers, fluttering to the floor like a wounded bird. For a moment, Ethan is certain he's going to be sick. But then something else rises in him, not nausea, not fear, but a terrible dawning recognition. Fragments of memory surge forward, unbidden. Lena's hand in his, cold and small, as they stand before a door that shouldn't exist. The smell of wet earth and copper as she whispers, "It has to be you. No one else will remember." The weight of a shovel in his palms, blisters forming on his fingers. The images dissolve as quickly as they came, leaving him gasping. The letter lies at his feet, innocent in its simplicity, but the real horror isn't the message. It's the growing certainty that he did help her, and that whatever door they opened together wasn't meant to be found. The past doesn't return to Ethan in a flood, but in splinters, each one sharp enough to draw blood. It begins with a scent, wet earth and copper, clinging to his clothes though he hasn't left the city in months. Then a sound, the rhythmic scrape of a shovel biting into dirt, though his hands are clean. The memories don't feel like recollections. They feel like intrusions, violent and unwelcome, forcing their way into his mind like thieves through a fractured window. He sees flashes, disjointed and surreal. Lena standing at the edge of Blackwater Lake, her silhouette dissolving into the mist as she turns to him and says, "Some doors only open from the inside." His own hands, pale and shaking, wrapping hers around the handle of an ornate key he doesn't recognize. Her skin is freezing. Or is it his? A notebook, not Lena's but his own, filled with diagrams of doors, each one more impossible than the last. One has a lock shaped like a human eye. Another opens into a hallway that twists like a Mobius strip. His handwriting captions them. Third method requires a mirror and moonlight. The worst moments are the ones that feel most mundane. A memory of sharing coffee with Lena in his kitchen, except he's certain they never did that. She's laughing at something he said, her fingers brushing his as she takes the mug. But the recollection is already rotting at the edges, warping into something darker. The same kitchen, late at night, Lena pressing a razor blade into his palm and whispering, "Blood is the only thing that remembers." Which version is real? Which one does he want to be real? The fragments don't fit together. They can't. Some show Lena pleading with him, her eyes wide with fear. Others show her smiling as she steps backward into a shadow that swallows her whole. In one, he's digging a grave. In another, he's the one lying in it. The only constant is the doors. Always the doors. Ethan staggers to the bathroom, turns on the faucet, splashes water on his face. When he looks up, the mirror shows a version of himself with hollow eyes and a mouth stretched too wide. It mouths words he can't hear. Behind him, just for a second, a door appears where the shower should be. It's already open, and from somewhere deep inside, a voice that might be Lena's, might be his own, whispers, "You've always known the way out." Then, silence. The mirror is just a mirror. The door is gone. But the memories remain. And with them, the terrible understanding. None of this is new. He's done this before, and he'll do it again. The moving boxes appear overnight, stacked neatly outside Lena's old apartment like a stage set waiting for its next act. Ethan watches from his peephole as strangers carry furniture inside. A velvet chaise lounge the color of dried blood, a standing mirror with an ornate frame that seems to ripple when touched. The movers speak in hushed tones, their words muffled through the door, but their body language is all wrong. They move with the stiff precision of puppets, their faces oddly blank, as if they're not men at all but mannequins given temporary life. Then she arrives. The woman is both familiar and impossible, her features shifting like a half-remembered dream. One moment she's all sharp angles, cheekbones that could cut glass, a smirk that doesn't touch her eyes. The next, she softens into something approaching warmth, her posture mirroring Lena's habitual slouch so perfectly it makes Ethan's breath hitch. She wears a perfume that cloys at the back of his throat, something floral with an undercurrent of decay, like roses left too long in a sealed room. Their first encounter happens in the hallway. Ethan, drawn by some morbid curiosity he can't name, pretends to check his mail as she emerges from the elevator. She pauses when she sees him, tilting her head in a way that sends a jolt of recognition down his spine. "You must be Ethan," she says. Her voice is wrong, not in pitch or tone, but in cadence. The pauses between words are just slightly too long, as if she's translating from another language in real time. "I've heard so much about you." A drop of sweat trickles down his back. "From who?" Her smile widens, not in response to his question, but at some private joke. "The walls here are thin," she says, running a finger along the peeling wallpaper. "If you listen closely, they tell you everything." Then she's moving past him, the hem of her dress brushing his ankle. For a fraction of a second, the fabric feels alive, not silk or cotton, but something porous and hungry. The scent she leaves behind isn't perfume at all, but the ozone tang of a storm about to break. The typewriter sits like a relic on Ethan's desk, its keys fossilized beneath a thin layer of dust. He stares at the blank page rolled into the carriage, the same page that has been blank for days or weeks, or perhaps forever. The walls of his apartment breathe around him, expanding and contracting with a rhythm that matches the pulse in his temples. Outside his window, the city pulses with indifferent life, neon signs flickering like distant stars, unaware that the universe inside these four walls has folded in on itself. Then the knocking, not at the door, not at the window, but inside the walls, a slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap that syncs with his heartbeat until he can't tell which is which. The sound moves, slithering through the pipes, echoing behind the plaster, always just out of reach. When he presses his ear to the wall, he hears it. A whisper, not in Lena's voice, but in his own, reciting words he doesn't remember writing. The air grows thick, resistant, as if the room is filling with invisible water. His vision darkens at the edges, tunneling toward the typewriter, where a single key depresses on its own. When Ethan looks up, the new neighbor is standing in his doorway. No, not standing, materializing. Her edges blur, as if she's not entirely in this dimension, her form resolving into focus like a photograph developing in real time. She wears Lena's face now, but it's a poor imitation, the features slightly misaligned, the smile stretching a centimeter too wide. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.